Hey everyone, Dr. Christine Kaczmar here. Thank you for listening to Smart Digestion Radio. You are listening to episode 40, and today I'm going to talk about the top 5 reasons you're constipated. Stay tuned.
Ain't nothing wrong with looking before you flush. This is Smart Digestion Radio with Dr. Christine Kaczmar, the podcast that makes things run a little smoother. And now your host, Dr. Christine Kaczmar.
All right, welcome in, and how are you? Hope you are doing well. I'm recording this episode pretty close to when I did the other one, so I don't have a big update for you. Okay, actually, it's the same exact day. But this is episode 40, and we are going to be talking about the top 5 reasons you're constipated. A couple of quick little tips for you, or little factoids, I should say. And that is, in the U.S., more than $700 million are spent on laxatives. Approximately 42 million Americans have constipation. And let's talk about a few of the associated symptoms to constipation. Having fewer than 3 bowel movements per week, having hard, dry, small stool, difficulty passing stool, straining to pass stool, bloating, abdominal pain, discomfort, headaches, losing your appetite, a bad taste in your mouth, nausea, feelings of sluggishness. These are just some of these symptoms associated to constipation. And I'm here to tell you, as your digestion doc, and that is, if you're not moving your bowels every day, you're constipated. If you're not having a bowel movement daily, you're constipated. Now, we've all been constipated at one point or another. Everybody has been constipated at one point or another. But today I want to reveal to you what I consider to be the 5 biggest reasons why you may be constipated. Reason number 1, low stomach acid. You've probably been hearing me say this a lot if you've been listening to any of my content, and that's because it's such a huge culprit to many digestive illnesses, to many different digestive symptoms. I did an entire podcast on this, just to remind you, if you want to go back and take a listen, go to thedigestiondoctor.com/34. Let's talk a little bit about why low stomach acid is going to lead to constipation. Well, one of the reasons why is when you have low stomach acid, you're not effectively digesting protein, you're not effectively absorbing minerals, and therefore you're going to have a thickened bile. Just for an analogy, if you will, or a metaphor, think of healthy bile like motor oil type consistency. If you are constipated, if your bile is too thick, now you have like a pasty type of consistency of that bile, and it's going to slow down your bowel movements. It's really plain and simple. My diarrhea patients, the converse, they have very watery bile. Okay, their bile is too wet, too thin, and they're going to have diarrhea. But today we're talking about constipation, right? So that's somebody who can tend to have a thickened bile, and that's going to lead to constipation just by having low stomach acid. The problem becomes many of your medical doctors are telling you that you're making too much stomach acid, so they want to recommend a proton pump inhibitor or an antacid. Not a good call. Why? Because that's going to also interfere with protein digestion and mineral absorption, not to mention increase your chance of having a stroke. The whole key is to find out why you have digestive stress, not to manage it through prescription medications. Prescription medications are never going to heal you, period. They will never, ever heal you. Prescription medications are going to block enzymatic processes and therefore assist in reducing a symptom like pain, but it's at the expense of robbing the body somewhere else. So I am not a fan of prescription medications. Yes, I understand that for crisis, emergency, critical care, medications have their place. I get it. As I've said many times, they kept my dad alive for 4 days, but once we took him off the meds, he was gone. Okay? He was gone quickly. So I understand the use of medications for emergency. That's not what we're talking about here. Reason number 1 why you may be constipated is because you are manufacturing low stomach acid. Reason number 2 why you may be constipated is you're focusing on treating symptoms. You're not addressing at all the root cause. And so when you're focusing on treating symptoms, you're probably taking a prescription med, maybe an over-the-counter med like Miralax. Maybe you're taking a Lipitor. Maybe you're taking Prilosec. Maybe you're taking birth control pills. All of the above can contribute to being constipated. In fact, if you look at any drug guide, any nursing student drug reference manual, virtually every single drug you look in there at the side effect, the adverse reaction to the GI tract, you're going to see constipation. Why would that be? Well, one of the things that these drugs do is they dehydrate you, among many other things. But the whole point behind understanding constipation is that you have no more water in the colon. You have way too little. The job of the colon is to take water for reabsorption, understood, but it should not take so much of the wetness or moisture out of the colon that the stools become very rock hard. So when you take prescription medications, you're not effectively looking at why you have constipation to begin with. In fact, maybe you didn't even have constipation when you started taking that birth control pill, but now you do. Well, birth control pills are linked into constipation because they increase estrogen. And when you increase estrogen, you're going to elevate cholesterol. And when you elevate cholesterol, you're going to mess with your body's bile consistency. Remember, the thicker your bile, the more constipated you are. Reason number 3 why you may be constipated is you are consuming the 5 belly busters, among other things in the standard American diet, aka SAD diet. But the 5 belly busters: pork, peanuts, corn, soy, and wheat. So let's look at gluten for a second. Gluten is a very specific protein that's found in different types of grains like wheat, rye, barley, etc. But I don't even have a problem with gluten per se. I have a problem with the fact that we have hybridized crops, similar to genetically modified, that have tampered with our grain. So I recommend spelt, unless if you are a celiac, obviously you're going to avoid all gluten. But even if you look at the Latin meaning for gluten, it means glue. I don't know how old you are listening to my podcast, but I'm 47, and back in the day when I would make paper mache in elementary school, it's a simple mixture of flour and water and some newspaper strips and a balloon, and you've got glue, okay? You've got paper mache. So imagine what's going to happen inside your gut when you're continually eating foods that are high in gluten. Definitely doesn't bode well for somebody who has a lot of constipation. So reason number 3 why you may be constipated is you're consuming foods that I call the 5 belly busters. Again, they are pork, hard to digest; peanuts, contain mold called aflatoxin; corn and soy, very genetically modified, can create constipation in the gut; and 5, white flour, wheat flour. And remember, white flour still is wheat. I mean, no disrespect when I say this, but it is a common misconception where my patients think that they can have white flour because it's not wheat. It actually is refined wheat. So no flour at all that is white or wheat. That is reason number 3 of why you may be constipated. All right, let's take a quick break, and I'll be right back. The phrase, "you are what you eat," is false. Better said, you are what you digest. Hey, it's Dr. Christine Kaczmar here. And if you're listening and you're out of state, maybe you live in Florida, maybe you live in Texas, and you'd like to work with me, I have you covered. Go to virtualdigestiondoc.com. That's virtualdigestiondoc.com. You will see there are 3 very specific ways that we can work together, even at long distance. Check out virtualdigestiondoc.com. Are you tired of being gassy and bloated and feeling like you got a bowling ball in your belly? I've got you covered there too. Go to omegadigestion.com to pick up my flagship product, Smart Carb. Smart Carb is a digestive enzyme with all of the enzymes in it you need to digest fats, carbs, proteins, dairy, you name it. It also has the healing botanicals of turmeric, black pepper, and cinnamon. Check it out by going to omegadigestion.com. That's omegadigestion.com. All right, we are back. Welcome back. We are going to do a quick recap here of the 5 reasons you're constipated. Number 1, low stomach acid. Number 2, not focusing on the root cause, focusing on symptoms too much. Number 3, SAD. It's SAD, number 3, which is the standard American diet. And now we are on to number 4, which is dehydration. Dehydration. Let me just start by saying that hydration is key. It's the second most important nutrient right behind oxygen. And if you aren't drinking enough water, you will have some measure, some modicum of constipation. When it comes to the physiology and the makeup of the colon, one of the roles, one of its functions is to remove excess water out of your excrement or waste. And it's going to reuse it and put it back in the body for recycling, if you will. Your body needs an absolute minimum of 6 to 8 glasses of water per day. 6 to 8 ounce glasses of water per day. Coffee and tea do not count. Alert. Coffee and tea do not count toward this. I like to ask my patients to try to aim for 96 ounces or 3 quarts of water per day. Now, what's really instrumental in having good hydration is when you are consuming the water. So when you first wake up, half an hour or more before you eat, and 2 hours or more after you eat. You do not want to be consuming more than 8 ounces of water with your meals. That's my suggestion. If you drink too much liquid in the presence of food, you are going to dilute your digestive power. So again, most of your water should be half hour before you eat and or 2 hours after you eat. And alert, coffee and tea do not count toward this minimal 64 ounces plus that you should be trying to achieve. So reason number 4 why you may be constipated is dehydration. It's such a simple thing. And I also want to just point out, we're talking about constipation right now, but if any of you listening have high blood pressure or hypertension or know of someone who does, a lot of that is linked to dehydration as well. It would blow your mind by just drinking more water, how you will see your blood pressure regulate. Water. And as far as what type of water I recommend, I'm not a fan of high pH water or high alkaline water. Not a fan of that. Your body only has approximately 3 pathways to remove excess alkalinity. Your water should be neutral around 7, okay? I think the only spring water I'd recommend would be Fiji. Otherwise, go for reverse osmosis or purified water. I don't care that Aquafina comes from the Detroit River where I live. As long as it's been cleaned, that's fine. But you want the pH of your water to be 7.0. And you can get test strips to check this and drops to check this. It's a fun assignment, actually, to do that. Put the drops in your water and see what the pH is. You want to be around 7 or neutral. You do not want to be 9, 10. That's ridiculous. What I want to do now is read an excerpt from this book that I happen to have on hand. And every now and then, I give it out to some of my most dehydrated patients. I have to reorder some more here, but I'm reading from a copy of this book called Your Body's Main Cries for Water. You're not sick, you're thirsty. Don't treat thirst with medication. This is by a medical doctor. I'm not sure of his first name. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but it's F. And his last name is very interesting. I'm going to try to pronounce it as Batman Galidj. It's Batmanghedlidj. At any rate, on the preface, he on page 16 in the preface, he says, in the past, when we were less arrogant in medical science, most health problems, which should be recognized as manifestations or complications of dehydration inside the cells of the body, were called diseases of unknown etiology. Today, these same diseases are being blamed on the genetic makeup of people. If only medical professionals would realize that the drought in the internal environment of cells in the body impacts the enzymatic activity of the DNA and RNA structures of the nucleus of the cells too. Thus, most of the malfunction of these genes is secondary to the missing action of water in the interior of the cells. Water should be present in adequate quantities for these genes to efficiently perform their obligations within the physiological, biochemical functions of the body. Woo! Man, do I love this guy. So let me just read again the key point I'm going to take away, and you know I will. And that is, if only medical professionals would realize that the drought in the internal environment of cells in the body impacts the enzymatic activity. What you may not be aware of as well is that in my office, one of the tests that I am doing and conducting is to find out extracellular water, intracellular water measurements. This is done by a BIA machine, a bioimpedance analysis machine. I have this in my practice. I do this for my patients who are local. And if you ever are in the area, stop by and I'd be happy to do this test for you. Water is key. So key. And now we are at number 5, the 5th reason why you may be constipated. This has to do with the greatest stress of all. There are 3 main categories of stress, and I like to say that they spell the acronym PEN. Physical, E, and N stands for nutritional. E is the one we're going to focus on, and that is emotional stress. Emotional stress. It's the greatest stress of all. It is said that the top 4 emotional stressors in this order are death of a loved one or a pet, divorce, a breakup. 3, a geographic move. And 4, being too serious. So once again, they are death of a loved one or a pet. 2 would be a divorce or a breakup. 3 would be a geographic move. And 4th, being too serious. Your gut, your second brain, that's my podcast that I just did, which is episode 39. You want to listen to that, go to thedigestiondoctor.com/39. We talk about your body's gut brain or your second brain, which is your enteric nervous system. But this system is very connected to what's going on with your overall gut health, your enteric nervous system, that is. We know about the solar plexus, which its location is in the belly button umbilicus area. We know that when we go with our gut, we have these sensations, right? How many different ways do we really need to rely on or read to prove that this is so? Okay, it's very much connected. What's going on with your gut has a lot to do with what's going on with your overall digestion. What's going on with your emotions has a lot to do with what's going on with your gut. And when you have these emotional stressors, it can change nerve pathways in your gut. The urge to have a bowel movement can be suppressed in the presence of emotional stress. You see, we have these 2 aspects of our autonomic nervous system. There's really 3. One's the enteric nervous system that I just described, but more popularized are the ones known as the sympathetic, your fight or flight response, and your parasympathetic, your feed and breed response. When you are locked into that sympathetic fight or flight syndrome, which is very common, when you're locked in and stuck in that system, the sympathetic nervous system, this can suppress the response for peristalsis, which is that muscular movement, okay, like a little bit of a worm, right, that your intestines act like to propel that food forward to have a bowel movement. That peristalsis can be disrupted when we are under emotional stress. All right, let's recap the 5 reasons you may be constipated. Number 1, low stomach acid. Number 2, focusing on treating symptoms and taking drugs to manage this. Virtually every single prescription drug known to man has a side effect of constipation. Check it out. Don't take my word for it. Get a physician's desk reference. Get a nursing student drug guide. You'll see, okay? You'll see. Number 3, the standard American diet. We're eating belly busters like pork, peanuts, corn, soy, and wheat. We're eating a lot of refined foods. We're eating foods that aren't real, that aren't raw, that aren't plant-based. Number 4 is dehydration. Very key. The second most important nutrient behind oxygen is water. And then number 5 is emotional stress. I really appreciate you taking a listen to my podcast. Please share these out if you found value in them. I appreciate that as well. And I will see you next time. Alrighty then, another episode of Smart Digestion Radio is in the books. However, the conversation never stops there. Great hubs to connect with me are going to be my Facebook page, which is The Digestion Doc. That's my handle on Twitter and Instagram as well. If you are interested in joining my community, my private inner circle over on Facebook, go to healthyrebelsfb.com, healthyrebelsfb.com. And my other main sites are thedigestiondoctor.com and omegadigestion.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of the mission. My mission is to save 5 million lives from the broken medical model, and I cannot do it alone. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.